Okay, so first, the word depreciation itself means a decrease in value, in case you didn't write that down already. Sometimes they use the word decay. So when you get to pre-calculus, they'll talk about something called exponential decay. And an example is when you multiply by a number less than 1. Like 1 minus 0.25. Yesterday we had talked about having 25% off. And so that item that you wanted to buy for 25% off had depreciated 25%, so to speak. And so 0.75 is what you pay, or in other words, it went down. That's what the minus sign means. It went down 25%. To appreciate means the exact opposite then, is to increase in value. Another word for this might be growth. And then for appreciation, that means that you would multiply by a number more than 1. For example, 1 plus 0.10 would mean a 10% appreciation. And yesterday when we were talking about these sequential equations, we talked about the starting value, and sometimes we notice that they like to put in the table a 1, meaning the first thing that we're talking about costs $8, and then a 2. For the second thing cost $12. But sometimes they used a 0. And in mathematics and physical sciences, they like to talk about things at time 0, like the beginning, before you do anything. And so that's why they like to use a 0 instead of a 1 sometimes. It means your starting value. So here, U0 for us means starting value. Common ratio is talking about how we discussed earlier depreciation and appreciation. So when you write down this common ratio, it's the thing that you multiply by, or the number I should say, the number we multiply by. For example, if you're going to be going up by 4%, we'd be multiplying by 1 plus 0.04. If we were going down by 5%, we'd be multiplying by 1 minus 0.05. And I'm going to show you this in your calculator in just a moment. And compound interest, years ago, when people, like long time ago, hundreds of years ago, people would just keep their money to themselves. So they'd have some silver or gold, they'd never put it anywhere, they'd keep it on their person or in their home. And then, of course, with the advent of banks, what banks do is they take your money, they put it into an account, and they invest that money. And in return for you giving them your money, they pay you something called interest. Which means, like, for example, every year, if you leave your money with me, maybe $100, I'll give you 2% interest. That means I'll give you $2 just for leaving your money with me. You can take it anytime you want to, but I'm going to pay you to leave it with me. And then they try to take the money and make more than 2%. Compound interest means that's going to happen on a repetitive basis. So a long time ago, people would leave their money in the banks and maybe they got something once a year, the $2. Nowadays, with the advent of technology and computers, they can do that on what they call a daily basis, which means that your money grows much faster. And we'll talk more about that later. So compound interest is interest gained on your principal and any interest that has accrued. And all that means is, for example, if I leave my money in for 5 years and they're giving me 2% interest, the first year I will gain $2. But then the second year I'll gain $1.02, $1.02, because I have $102 in there, and I gain some money on that. And the next year I gain a little bit more, and the next year I gain a little bit more, and it keeps adding up. That's what compound interest is saying, is that not only do you make the money on the money you originally put in, but whatever they had given you as well. So let's talk about some examples here to kind of put this in perspective. Let's look at a 2% growth. If I wanted a 2% growth, what would I multiply by to make that happen? 1 plus 0.02 is correct. Good job. I would multiply by 1 plus 0.02. Why? Because if I'm growing, that means I'm adding on something, and 2% is written as a decimal as 0.02. The 1 is representing the 100% that you start with, and then the addition of the 2% comes afterwards. The second part talks about a 5% decay. So that means I'd be multiplying by 1 minus 0.05. The minus sign is there because it's a decay. That means it's going down. And then the 5% written as a decimal is 0.05. And a 3.45% growth would be written as 1 plus 0.0345. And that's what I'd be multiplying by. And every time that you see a number and it's a percentage, it has a little percent symbol after it, you write it as 1 plus and then move the decimal spot 2 places left. And that's how you write it as a percentage. Questions about any of that? Okay. Number 2, and then you can have the rest of the hour. In number 2, let's say that you're going to put in 500 bucks into an account, and it has 6.5% every year. And you're not going to put any more money in there. That's all the money you're ever going to put in, and you're just going to see what happens. If your interest is compounded monthly, you don't get 6.5% every single month. You have to split that up. So the way that you would write the multiplication rate, instead of writing down 1 plus 0.065, which is normally what we would do, so we would normally say, let's multiply by 1 plus 0.065. This is how we would have done it based on the stuff up above. But since it's going to be split, and we want to do it monthly, we have to split that 6.5% over 12 months. And the way that you do that is you just write down over 12. Bless you. If you just type this in your calculator, it'll do it for you. So this 12 is talking about monthly. So now let's go to our calculator and put that in our calculator and see what happens. So grab your calculators. Bless you. And we talk about a times 0 now, so instead of having the 1 in the very beginning, remember that first line is talking about the beginning value. So for money, oftentimes we just use a 0. And it's always UN minus 1 stuff. And now what we're going to do is we're going to change this to 1 plus 0.065, because that's 6.5%, divided by 12. Parentheses. And what was my beginning value? 500? So there's my equation. So here I have a 0. That's my counter. Really has nothing to do with the equation other than tell me at times 0 I started with 500 bucks. And then UN minus 1 is always the same. And since I'm increasing, I'm getting interest, I'm going to multiply by 1, and hard to see up here, so I don't know if I can, there we go. If I scroll across, you can see 1.065 divided by 12. Okay, and that's what we talked about a little bit earlier. So now I can go into my table. So I go second window. I want to start at 0 time, and then go up by every single month. So start at 0, go up 1 month at a time, auto, auto. Now let's go look at our table. Notice that I'm starting at $500. After 1 month, I have $502.71. After 2 months, I have $505.43, so on and so forth. So now the question was, how much money do I have after 1 month? So now if I go back to my screen here, the way that we found that was I took the $500, really, and I multiplied it by 1 plus 0.065 over 12. And we found out that was how much? 502.71? Mm-hmm. Thank you. And so this is why I always tell you to round to 2 decimal places, so that when we deal with money, it's a lot easier. But really, what we did was we looked in our table, which I believe, since you're going to use your calculator all the time in here, is the best way to do this. Bless you. Where would I have to look to find out 12 months later or a year? Just go down to 12. So when you get to 12, how much money do you get? $533.49? Yep. 49 cents. This is in my table when X equals 12. Or in other words, after the 12th month. How about 29 months? Well, after 29 months, you just go down, you can scroll down to 29, or, we talked about earlier, I can change what's going on in my calculator. So what I could do is I can go second table set if I want to, and instead of doing auto, I could go ask auto. And then I can type in any number I want to, however many months later. And then I go into my table after that, after I ask auto, and I can just type in 29 months later, and it'll tell me how much money that is. So $584.80. $584.80.
Is that only if you don't want to scroll down?
Right. So you can do it either way. The issue is if you're doing it the scroll down way, what if I said 10 years later? What number would you have to look at? 120. So you can scroll down to 120 if you want, or you can just type in the 120. Up to you.